So Roger, over to you.
Thank you. So I will share my screen. So what I want to do today, oops, let me press the share button. Let's go like that. So what I want to do today is to go through the basic access in the system, talk about logons, navigation, passwords, queues, tasks, toolbars, buttons, favorites, menus, etc., going through a few of those. So it's a good introduction to how to get around the system. The first thing is that you need to access it, and you access it using a browser. Now we've got 4 customers. We've got Fatface, Hobbs, Liverpool, and TM Lewin. And with each of those, they've each got 2 servers. They've got a live or production one and a test one. So obviously the test one's quite a good one to play around with and see how it works. The versions that each of these have got are slightly different. Liverpool and TM Lewin are on version 9, and then Hobbs and Fatface are on version 8. So those are slightly different. And they also do use the systems in a slightly different way as well. So sometimes when I wanted to show, if we're going to go through a feature, I might have to log on to Fatface. Another time I might have to log on to TM Lewin, for example. Those are the 2 I'll probably be using the most. And the one I'm going to use today is going to be the TM Lewin one. So what I can do is separately, maybe on the next, for the next call, is to give you a list of these URLs. What I'll also need to do then is to give you access to yourself. So I'll set you up as a new user. So that's probably the first thing to do, is to set you up as both up as a user. And I'll give you a default password, and I can show you how you can change your password. So that would be something that you could use in the background. So what this does, it uses Java. So there might be a query about whether you've got the right version of Java installed as well. This is taking a while because I was in here earlier on and it wasn't a problem. Oh, there we go. So what it does, it opens a new window, which I'll now drag across. So you can see, can you see that new window? I wonder if it's not changed.
Loading. It's black for me.
Oh, just a minute. Let me. I think I know what I did. I might have shared an individual window rather than a screen. Let me do that instead. There we go. Screen.
Nice. I can see now.
That's it, right? Okay. So I'm going to log on, and there's 2. So it's username and password. So I'll log on, and what we'll do, I'll first of all go straight into creating a new user for you both, and I'll need to do that on every single one of those servers in the long term. So on all 8, but you can have the same username and password on all 8, but some of them force you to change the password more frequently than others, so it keeps them out of sync a bit. But you can at least try to keep them in the same way. So that's the main menu. We'll come back to this one shortly. So to access the background functionality, you basically go in and key the word is security. And this gives us a new form to go through, the navigator form. And this is where we can define things such as roles and users. So if I look at the user side of things, because this is what we need to do first. So in here are all the users, and I set all. So these are TM Lewin users, and what I do with the Prologic and Ignite people, I'll set you all up with a DEM, as in like demo. So I'll create 2 new users. So what I'll do is to create DEM AK. But could you spell me your surname, please, Alexi?
Yeah, K-I-C-H-I-N.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's different access methods, but we want the full method. So there's functionality that you can't use if you're in these other methods. So what I'll do as the password for now, it says, so it's got to be, it can't be less than 8 characters. It can't include sort of certain invalid characters. It can't be the same as, well, we haven't done any before, so that won't matter. It should contain at least 3 letters and 1 digit, one numeric. Should start with a letter and shouldn't have more than 2 repeated characters. So what I will do, I will make the password. Let me see. I'll do this. Does it say uppercase and lowercase? Doesn't say, does it? No, it doesn't say. So I will just type it in as lowercase and put a number 1, the digit 1 at the end. Yeah. So
Yeah,
D.
8 characters long.
Oh, you well spotted.
maybe just password 1. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Password 1. Okay, so that should be creating that. Come on. I mean, the test server isn't as fast as the production server, but still, this is a lot slower than I would thought. And this sort of indicator at the bottom right is indication that the network is accessing. So that's the first one, and then I'll create DEMLP. So it's Leo. Is that correct, Leo?
Not really. P-L-E-G-R-I-N-E. P-L-E.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, P-E-L-E.
There we go.
G-R-I-N-I. Just missing R. All right.
Yeah, that's
Perfect.
it. Yeah. And I'll make this the same as password 1.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then what we need to do then is to give you access, because the way the system works is that we've got all of these different roles, and these roles give us access to certain options. So if I look at default role, so these are all the modules within the system, and then within the module we've got sub menus, and within the sub menu we've got individual programs that run. Okay, so you can see where the ticks are. So these are the ones that you've got access to. Okay, so this should be virtually everything. So like normally this is where we give people access. So if I just simply go on here and select that and select so you know both in that, so you'll have access to all of these options. Okay, so I'll save that. So yeah, there you go. So that means you'll be able to log on once I give you your shortlist. Right. So what you'll want to do the first time you go in is to change your password. So you can do that using tools and change password. So then you just type in your old password and your new one twice. Okay, and then you click OK, and then I think it forces you to log off, or to No, sorry, it won't. No, it won't force you to log off. But I think it's a good idea to always log off and then just come back in to make sure you've got the right password straight away, just to prove that it's there. So that's the first thing you'll need to do, is just to get that that done. Okay. Now, so within the system, so therefore we've got a lot of in the toolbar here, we've got a lot of options, and if you highlight each one, it will give you, a short description of what each one does. So it's fairly helpful in that respect. You just go through and identify that. So it goes through all of those, and so forth. Okay. One of the things that when you're in the system, that if a mistake has been made, or whether there's some data discrepancies or whatever, then a message will appear. Now you can decide on what level you want that message to appear. So the default would be that if the message is just a warning or information, then it will appear at the bottom of the screen. So if at the bottom of the screen there, so like you can see that it shows you, it changes as we're going through. So if it's default, it will say, if it's a warning, you'll see it at the bottom. If it's something where you've got to take some action, or it's an error, then it will pop up in a little window. What you can do is to say, well, I want all messages to pop up into a window, and you have to accept them before you move on. You have the alternative to say, well, actually, I want all messages to appear at the bottom, so I don't want to be bothered by anything. So it's just, you've got the options to work either way. And sometimes when there is a problem, there could be two messages related to the same issue, and you will only ever see one of those messages. If it pops up, you'll only ever see one of those messages if you're on default. Whereas if you click alert, you would then see the first message, you can accept that, and then you would then display the second message. So sometimes when you are stuck and it's like, well, that message, I don't understand what the message is saying, if you come back here, change it to alert, that will give you that option to see that second message, and that will then with the one that will help you. I would suggest you don't leave it on alert though, because it'll be so annoying, because all these messages will pop up and you've got to keep answering them when actually you don't need to do any actions. So majority of the time you leave it on default, but say certain times you can switch it to alert. And then in other cases, I think for some users, when they're going through and they're keying lots of information on and it pops up with a message every time, they don't need to action that message, it's just popping up. So they will change it to status so that they can key the transaction data in much more quickly. So that's the message level. The other thing in here that we go into sometimes is the debug level. So this is when there has been a problem. Quite often there's a problem with a job, and the support desk will tell the customer, say, oh, can you run that in debug? And when we say that, we're saying, can you run that in debug 6? So that would mean that the level of information that we get in the log file is much more clearer. So every time we run a job that's a sort of a batch processing job, every time we run it, it creates a log file. If you're in debug level 0, that log file will be overwritten by the next instance of that same program. If you run in debug 6, it will keep that log file there for a long period of time until we come through and remove the log files. So it's just there, it's useful if you're trying to find what's wrong with the program. The information in the log file currently isn't detailed enough. So you go into level 6, and that will add a lot more debugging status. So, yep.
The log files, are they created on user workstation or on the server in database somewhere?
They're created on the server, and you can access them in here. And I'll let me show you that now. Okay. That will be useful. So before I do that, I'll just explain the menu and the access of options. As you saw earlier, I keyed in the word security, and then click the tick to open that program. You can access a menu option either by using the tree structure and going into, go to a module, then it's like, okay, I want to drill down to the next level. And then this is what I want to go to now. I want to go to this job maintenance function. So I can access that job by doing that. That means I'm using a program called CV5T. I can type that in there. If you know it, CV5T, you can type that in there and call the same program up. So that comes up that way. There is also the ability to add some of these options as your favorites. So if I just click on that to add favorites, if I now go to my favorites, you can see that that's been added to my favorites. So I can click on that and go into it. So there are a number of ways to still get to the same program. At first, when you're not knowing the system, then you're probably going to have to go through this way. There's also the ability to say, well, I don't actually know what the menu option is, but I know it's related to one certain aspect. So what you can do is to use another function which is called list values, which is this little notepad here. So sorry, list of values. The microscope. What do you thought we got? I've got a brain freeze. I've forgotten what that is. Magnifying glass. So you can click on that, and that will give you an option to say, well, actually, this is something. I want to use something to do with barcodes or barcode. I can just type that in, and it'll give me all the menu options to relate to barcode. And then you can work out which is the one that you actually want to get to. So, and while we're here, one of the things that happened with the system, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, was that we used to have all the menu options with a single character, but we ran out of single characters, so we had to change it, so to make them 2 characters. So in the same way before, when I typed in CV5T, I know that the old menu option module name for CV is A, so I can type in A5T. Oops, or even 5T. There we go. Let's try that instead. And in that case, I press the Enter key rather than clicking that, but both work the same. So there's a number of ways of accessing a program. Okay. You can have multiple programs open at once. So let's just look at. And once you've got a number open, you're able to see which ones are open and go straight to it using this window and drop down. So it's okay, well, that's the one I want to look at. And as you say, you can move these around, but you can't resize them. You're not able to resize them. This is using Oracle forms. Unfortunately, you're not able to resize it. So what I want to do is, this is where we can see the log files. And so the default is to say, I'm going to show every type of program running from any queue, and I'll come back to queues shortly. And the date range is basically in the 24 hours that you're in now. So it's the beginning of the day to the beginning of the next day. So basically anything in that time. And these times are the times of the server where the server's based, and all the servers for the Prologic customers are based in UK. So these are all the UK times. So I can just click in here, and it's going to show me all the log files for programs that have been run, that are currently running now or been running in the past. And so this is the time those programs started. That was the queue it ran under. If there was a task beneath it, and again, when we come to queues, that'll become clearer. That's the actual program that was run, and it was run from that location. There were some parameters, various number of parameters for different programs. And there's a status. So there's one that's failed. So I could look at the the failure. And this is the log file. So here we can see the log file. So the job started on the 18th. It started at 15/19/07 and finished actually within a second. And here is a list of the errors. Here it shows you whether it was a debug 6 or debug 0. So obviously this is a debug 6, which means it's good, so it's going to give us more information. So it's going through and showing you the issues with this program. And here we see it was a failure. It's trying to save that file. There was a problem saving that file there. There are multiple pages, so you can just use this to the next page. What you can also do, though, if you've got a lot of pages, is just increase the page size, click reload, and you get one page. You can then search through the entire file to find a keyword. So in failure, so this time you can see that there's 5 different ones there. But so you can't do that easily if you've got separate pages. It only looks at search for one page at a time. So because I've extended this page size, and it's allowing me to search through multiple ones. So each page is 100 lines. So there we go for that. So yeah, so we're able to see log files quite easily.
Yeah, guys, I just got a message. The meeting will end in 10 minutes, so then I'll have like to spend 5 minutes saving video, and then we'll join again. So if you're disconnecting, just rejoin and wait for me to join for a few minutes, okay?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's 40 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Okay. So yeah. So we can see. You can just look into, if you're interested only looking at failures. We can just do that and click on. Oops. Just done waiting as well. Get rid of that. So we can just look at failures. If we're interested only looking at certain programs, then we can say, well, it's just the i8xa-51. And what I'm using here, what we call wildcards. So the % character is like an asterisk in Microsoft, in Windows. So that is a wildcard. So basically, I'm to look for anything which has got those characters in. And it actually finishes at the end, so I can do that. In the same way, I could look at.
So by doing that, you're scanning logs for all users, right? Not just you. Or...
In this case, yes, all users. Yeah. So that's the sign. This find the same. So what you can also do, you can replace. You can use a single character replacement, a query wildcard as well. Just wonder if there's anything useful that I can. Oh, no, I've only got that one in there. It's not really. Just the data's not really giving much choice. Looks like it's only 51 that's running. i8x. Let's just try one more. U0P. Nothing. Suffice to say, if I wanted to just do a wildcard for one character, I'd use an underscore. So I'd just do it in that way, and then I could put a so it's -5, and I could do that. So it's looking for anything that finds i8xa, i8x, and then a character, and then -5. So you can use that way as well. Okay. So let me go to queues now, because I think it's useful so you can understand when I talk about queues. So there's a button here that says View Scheduler. So queues are basically jobs that run in the schedule. So the first part that pops up is in here. So I can look through. I can actually look at queues for users. So if I use the default, sorry, what I should be doing is doing this. Enter query means that this is what I want to do a query, and then I've decided that's what I want to query on. So anything that's yellow, I can enter in as an option, and then this field here, which is the same as function key 12, I can press, and it will then give me all of the users' queues. So these are all users' queues, and you can see when they last used it, which is a long time ago. This is the test server. So if I look at mine, key that in. So I've got nothing in my queue either. Okay. So apart from users' queues, then we can see these are the main queues. So, and these jobs either run daily or weekly or monthly. You've got 3 options. And if it's daily, you can say which day of the week it runs. So that's fine. Actually, no, weekly is now gone because you can just tick one of those like that. So that's like a weekly one effectively because it only runs on a Monday. So you can do that way. Then you specify when you want it to start. And if you're going to, and some of these jobs run multiple times a day. So I'm just scrolling through. So this one runs at 7 o'clock and then every hour. So 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock on a Saturday. Okay. And these are the jobs that it's going to run. So that's some cases it's a program, other cases it's an actual task. So that's a program and that's a task. So these are just added to as we go along. I'll show you adding them on my queue rather than changing any of these. So a program is basically adding one of these, and then tasks. So we could look at sales load by going into task, going into query mode, keying in sales load. And so sales load runs these particular programs with these tasks. And you can see here, these are all set to debug 6 as well. So if I look at my queue, I can add a program by going into select the program in here, or if I know the number. So I could go into here and say, I want to do barcode creation. So if I select that, double click that, it pops up the program and it says, okay, well, what parameters do you want to do? I said, I just want to do that one. And it adds it to the queue. So if I ran, let's just find something else let's use that one there that's already set up, AR0P. So this is replenishment. So this has got various tick boxes that I can key in, so I can fill in the details and then click OK. There's also an apply here. So if I click apply, it will say, do you want to add it to the queue? Yes. And it will leave it open there so I can run another one. So I could run a second one for warehouse 2 and then say OK. So that means I'm going to get 2 jobs added to this queue. Oh, it's done it in 1. That's interesting. That's not what I expected. Oh, sorry. Just run those jobs immediately because I'm not suspended. So it's run those jobs immediately. That's why it disappeared. So what I can do now is to come out of that, and then we'll go back to that program we looked at earlier, A5T, and we can see that the jobs that I've just kicked off are in here. So they're all demarqué. So that first job, that one ran through in no time at all, and now these other ones are running. So I ran userp twice, and what it does, it's created two separate temporary task names.